Hi, I'm Ellie with Southern Daisy Wreaths. Today I'm going to show you how to make a small deco mesh Christmas wreath. I want to show you this one up here. This is a large wreath. It's about 30 inches across and it's huge, even though it doesn't look that big on camera, but it takes up the whole door. And not everybody is able to fit these large wreaths on their door, so I'm going to show you how to make it a little bit smaller. Before I begin, if you hear a lot of barking, I have two gigantic rescue fur kids, and my dogs tend to bark a lot, so if they start barking over me, I'll stop for a minute and then we'll continue on. Anyways, let me go over the supplies that you're going to need to make the small wreath. So the first thing that you want to do when you're making a wreath is you want to pick out the centerpiece or focal piece for your wreath. So what I chose today is a glittery black snowman hat. Has the little cranberries on it. I think it's super cute with a little red band around it. The mesh that I'm using, it's a deco poly mesh. It's 10 inches by 10 yards. So the first one I'm gonna use is a lime green mesh with the red foil stripes in it. And then I just have a simple 10 inch by 10 yards red deco mesh. I have my ribbon picked out, so I'm going to use a 2.5 inch glittered red ho 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 wreath, and it has little Santa's belt in it and some green glitter, 2.5 inch. And then I have several different 1.5 inch ribbons picked out. I typically pick out ones that go all together, and then as I'm building the wreath, I kind of figure out which one I really want to put in there in each tie and which one I want to make my bows out of. So we'll go over that a little bit later. I have my wreath form. This is the 10 to 20 inch wreath form. If you're making a wreath and you want to be really poofy, I find that the wreath forms with the ties already on them kind of lends to that poofiness a little bit better than the plain metal forms that you put the ties on yourself. So then we have my wire cutters, just in case you need them. It's always good to have. I have a 12 inch ruler. I have my rotary cutter to cut up my mesh with. A pair of good sturdy scissors. Of course, my dependable little glue gun here, my favorite toy. Zip ties and extra glue sticks. And so that's really all you need to make a wreath. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make our poofs out of our mesh for the base of our wreath. Pretty much when you make a wreath, I look at it as kind of a construction site. So I make my foundation with the mesh, and then I just add my layers and I build on it and build on it until it's exactly what I want. So we're gonna start with the foundation layer. So the first thing you wanna do is you wanna pull your ties out away from the wreath. And this just kind of lets you see exactly where the ties are located. And you can see right here how they're all mixed together. So when you start putting your deco mesh in there, you don't want that hot mess going on in there. You want to have them separated out and a little more organized. So the top ones, I don't lay out like this because I don't want to get them mixed into my bottom ring poofs. So I just kind of either put them straight up, or I might just point them in just a little bit, but I make sure they're nice and separated. Okay, so we're going to take our 10 inch mesh. In case you're wondering, pretty much all of this came from craftoutlet.com. I do find some items on Trendy Tree, and sometimes you can find ribbon at Costco or Sam's Club whenever they have their holiday specials going on. You can buy like the really big rolls of ribbon, which is pretty awesome. Okay. So when you first unroll your mesh, you notice that when you unroll it, the edge of it is all kind of frayed. I don't like to start with that type of frayed end. So I'll just take my rotary cutter. You want to be really careful with this. These are very sharp and they can cut your fingers off. And you just want to go along the edge of it. You don't want to take away too much mesh because you need all of it for your wreath. But you just want to make a nice straight edge. You can see the difference there. Okay. All right. So now you want to take your mesh and you just kind of want to gather it at the end. And you really don't want to grab it like this. It makes your whole poof come out weird. So I take it from one side and I gather it in like so. Okay, and then I come down and I leave about a 4-inch tail. And so you can do this one of two ways. You can either leave the tail and tuck the tail up into the wreath itself from behind, or you can take it and you can flip it over and make a little tiny poof, and you can start with that so you don't have that big frayed end sticking out on your wreath. I'm gonna go ahead and do it this way. So you're gonna take that first little poof and you're just gonna, you can pick any tie that you want, and you're gonna come down and you're gonna put it in the tie, and then you're gonna go around a nice secure once around, okay? You don't wanna tie it too many times because you don't wanna bulk up your ribbons and your deco mesh and all these things and take up your tie space. So if I were to put the deco mesh, tie, ribbon, tie, I would eventually run out of tie, and I need those ties because remember I'm kind of building a structure here, so I'm gonna build the layer after layer. Okay, so the next thing you wanna do is grab your deco mesh, and you wanna make sure that your edges are kind of facing downward and rolled in just a touch, okay? And you wanna take your ruler and you wanna measure out to about 1 foot. And on these smaller wreaths, you can gauge how poofy you want it. You can do a 10-inch poof, you can do a 12-inch poof, you can do a 14-inch, but it's a little bit much. But it's all in your preference. So play with it a little bit and see what you like best. I prefer the 12-inch, so we're gonna do that. So you take where you gathered it at the 12 inches, and you put it down into your next tie. Okay, and then you just give it a nice tight twist there. And like I said, you only wanna twist the once. And then I come back and I kinda manipulate that poof a little bit and kinda poof it out a touch. I want to make sure that I got a good, nice size poof. Can everybody see that? All right. So then you just want to grab your mesh from that last tie that you were in, and you want to measure it out again to about 12 inches. Boy, this mesh is really sticky. Then you want to come down into your next tie. And you just want to do the same thing. You want to come down, you want to give it a nice firm little tie there. And then come back and you want to poof that out again. Okay? Okay, so I got the bottom rung done, bottom ring. And so now I'm just going to move up to the top and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm just going to gather my mesh. I'm going to measure it out 12 inches away from the tie. I'm going to come down, I'm going to lay it in the tie and then give it a nice little twist. And you kind of want to give it that snug down twist because it gives you more space. If you just do a loose twist, it kind of takes up a little more space on that tie. Okay, and so again, I'm going to pull it out, 12 inches. I'm going to lay it down in the next tie. And you really do want to measure your poofs. When I first started doing the wreaths about 2 years ago, I did not measure my poofs. I just kind of eyeballed it. And the problem with that is I would put it up on the wall and I'd have one side of my wreath have this, big poofy side to it, and then the other side of the wreath had these kind of smaller poofs to it, and you can really see the difference. So if you want that professional appearance, go ahead and take the time to measure out your poofs. It just gives it a better circumference all the way around. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish the top rung, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about ribbon. Okay, so now I've gone all the way around the bottom rung and the top rung of the wreath form. And the next thing that I wanna do to kind of clip off, excuse me, my mesh is I wanna make about a good 4 to 6 inch tail on that, okay? And then I'm just gonna cut across. And I don't like to grab the tail and just chop it because then it leaves my mesh all choppy, and for the next project I end up having to cut off several inches that was usable mesh, so I don't like to waste much. Okay, so I'm gonna take that tail and I'm just gonna tuck it down. I don't know if y'all can see this. I'm gonna tuck it down in between the rungs on the work form, and I'm gonna pull it through to the back of the wreath, okay? And then we're gonna deal with that later to kind of secure it down and make it kind of invisible. Okay, so now you just wanna go through and you really just wanna work your poofs, okay? And you wanna make them nice and fluffy and as big as you can get them, okay? Probably one of my biggest pet peeves when I look at a wreath is if I can see the wreath form behind, like through the mesh, I lose my mind. And I'm pretty sure that those of you out there that are making them, it bothers you too. So there's ways to hide them. So you can start with your deco mesh. You can get the one with the foil in it, and that's kind of a thicker mesh, and it's not quite as see-through. But there's some other things that you can do. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the 10-inch red deco mesh, and I'm gonna cut out strips at 15 inches. And so the smaller wreath forms have 12 ties, so I'm gonna cut 15. I'm gonna do that with my rotor cutter so I don't wear my hands out cutting each strip. So I use my my mat here that I am in love with. It's like been my favorite purchase ever. The day that I got it, I literally was jumping up and down with excitement because I was so excited to get it. Okay, so you want to take your rotary cutter, and at 15 inches, just want to cut. And you want to press down a little bit so you get all the way through, okay? And that's one. And I'm going to go ahead and make 12 of those, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so we're just finishing up. I've got 2 more to cut. So again, I'm going to cut it at 15 inches. And this is that 10-inch deco mesh. Okay, last one. All right, so what you want to do now is you want to take one of your little rolls here, okay, and you want to put it longwise, okay, and then you want to grab it at the edges and twist it in. Okay, and then I kind of run my fingers into the center and I continue twisting, and you want to just twist it all the way through. Can y'all see that? Okay, all right. Then you want to take that, you want to bend it in half, and then you want to pinch it kind of halfway down. Okay, so it looks like one of the ribbons that are for all the different causes that are out there, which are great causes, by the way. So then you want to take that and you want to put it into one of your ties. So again, you don't want to put something down, twist, put something down, twist. You want to reopen your tie and apply whatever you're putting down there. So I'm going to open up my tie. And I'm just going to put this in. And then again, I'm just going to bring it down. I'm going to give it a good snug tie. Just one, okay? And it kind of gives you those little curly cues sticking out a little bit. And you can come in and you can cut the little tails that are coming off, okay? And you can reach in there and you can kind of spread out that little poof that you put in there, okay? So what that does is it prevents the spacing between your poofs so you don't see the metal form. So you can see right there where you can see the metal form. Once we put the poof down in there, you won't see that at all. So again, you just take your 15-inch strip that you cut. You start out wide and then you come in and twist it down. And they don't have to be like super duper tight. They can be a little bit loose. It's just whatever your preference is for your ties, okay? And then fold it over, and you see how it makes a nice little poof. Pinch it. Open up your tie. And then put that down in there. Just like that. Okay? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish the bottom ring, and then we'll come back and we'll do the top ring together. Okay, so I got the bottom rung done. So I'm gonna come up, I'm gonna do the top ring, and I'm gonna do a couple with y'all, and then we'll pause for a minute and I'll get through them and then we'll come back. But just to show you again, the 15-inch strips that you cut, I'm gonna take them and turn them over from the outside, run your finger along it to tuck in that centerpiece, and then just keep on rolling. So here's the thing with these is that you'll notice on the bottom rung, all of the tails are facing downwards or outwards. You can see that? So now I want to turn around and do the opposite way for the top rung. Huh?
Low battery.
That's fine. Okay, so now I'm going to do it the opposite way for this, for the top part. And you want to open up your tie, set your little ribbon down in there and just give it a nice little snug tie. Okay. And again, you're always manipulating your wreaths. You're always playing with your poofs and poofing them out, and anything that you add in there, you're constantly playing with it until you find the perfect location for each and every little poof and strip that you stick in there. So I find, you know, I go back and I rearrange all the time. Okay, so open up your tie, and again you want to do it the opposite direction, so facing inwards now, and come down and give it a nice little snug, like so. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish the top one and then we'll be back. Okay, so we're going to finish the last little poof together here and go on in. And I'm so sorry about the sniffles, guys. I live down here in Houston, Texas, and as everybody's pretty much aware, we all went through Hurricane Harvey back in August, and unfortunately everybody down here is kind of dealing with these allergies and cold-like symptoms ever since then, so lots of fun. Okay, so we're going to put that last little ribbon tail in there, just like so. And then you just want to go around and you want to kind of clip the little wispies that are popping off the edges. And they're going to do that no matter what you do, what style wreath you do. Anytime you deal with deco mesh, you're always going to have the little loose pieces until the wreath stops moving. So once you hang it on your door and it's no longer being jostled around, the little ties will stop coming loose. So, okay, so if you want to take a look at that, okay, so now you can kind of see we've given it a little bit more dimension and a little bit more fullness to the wreath by adding these little ribbons in there, okay? So the next thing that we want to do is look at our wreath, and we want to figure out where we want to put our centerpiece, okay? So on the big wreaths, you can put them way over to the side, in the middle, whatever you so choose. But on the smaller wreaths, you have to be very careful because it's a small wreath, and so you can really offset your wreath quite a bit. So I have this snowman hat here. And I think I'm just gonna nestle it right down in the middle, just like that. Because again, if I put it over here, I really cover up a lot of the wreath and it kind of offsets it. But I'm gonna show y'all up here on this bigger wreath. If I were to put it over to the side, it'd be kind of cute. And I could put a little bow underneath it. There's a bow over here, you can kind of see. And you can snuggle it in there and it doesn't offset the whole wreath. So on this one, I'm gonna put it right in the center. Okay, so now that I've figured that out, I kind of want to look at it with the piece on there, and I want to figure out what ribbon I'm going to use. Okay, so I think we're still going to go with the Ho Ho Ho, and then I think I'm going to change it up a little bit. Instead of using that, I'm going to put some colors in it because we have the green and the reds together. So I think I might do the Ho 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 and some candy canes. I think that would be cute. And then probably just looking at different ribbon. That'd be too similar. Okay. So the thing that I'm doing here is I'm looking at my ribbon and I'm looking at my wreath and I'm kind of seeing which ribbon strips are really gonna make this wreath pop. So I think these 3 are gonna do just fine. Okay, so now what I wanna do is cut my ribbon strips. I love this ribbon. I got this ribbon at Costco last year when they did their big Christmas ribbon push, and I just fell in love with it. It's a really nice ribbon. It forms really well. So whenever you use ribbon for a wreath, you want to make sure that you're using wire-edged ribbon so that you can actually form the ribbon. Otherwise, you just have a limp bow. So I'm going to cut my ribbon strips at 12 inches. Like so. Okay. And then I'm going to take my ribbon strips and I'm going to chevron the ends or ducktail the ends, whichever way you prefer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ribbon, I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to fold it in half pretty side out. Okay. And then I'm going to take my shears and cutting towards the corner of the ribbon, I'm going to give it a nice little tail. Okay, just like that. So that gives your it gives your wreath a little bit more of a polished look instead of just having that straight edge sticking out. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up all my ribbon and then we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm cutting up my ribbon strips, and again we're cutting them at 12 inches, and we want to cut 12 of each ribbon so that you have 1 strip in each tie of each ribbon. And so we're just cutting away here, and I've already done my 2.5 inch, so now I'm doing my 1.5 inch. And this is really a lot of where the work comes in when you're doing your ribbon. And some people like to stack their ribbon and cut it all at once. And I've tried it, and with certain ribbon I think it works well, and then with other ribbon it doesn't. This is kind of a thicker ribbon, and so it doesn't lay well with the others, but you can, just for example, take your roll and lay your ribbon right on top, and you can just cut away, and it kind of cuts down on the deals, cuts down on the time to make them. So I'm gonna finish cutting these up, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm just working on doing the chevron cut on my ribbon. So when you do the chevron cut, you wanna make sure you have the pretty side facing out, and you want to cut it at an upward angle, and I like to make my cuts kind of deep. If you do them too short, it looks a little silly on the wreath, in my opinion. But so I just want to say there's a lot of places, you know, I've been making wreaths for about 2 years now, and there's a lot of sites that I've gone to learn how to make wreaths and that kind of thing, but I have to give a shout out to Deco Exchange. Damon taught me a lot of things about making wreaths, and Julie over at Southern Wreaths, she helped me a lot, and of course Trendy Tree. Those are my 3 favorite sites. And the cool thing about Trendy Tree is they also sell items to make wreaths with. So you can go to trendytree.com. And they do a lot of the ribbon and the mesh and the centerpieces that are super, super cute. And then, of course, I use craftoutlet.com for a lot of my supplies. And I love craftoutlet.com because if you make a purchase of over $69, they do free shipping. And then you also earn points for your next purchase. So, you know, I think it's 5 points for every $100 or something of that nature. You can look it up on their policies, but it's kind of nice when you go and you check out and you have points built up, and it takes money off of your purchase. It's I consider it Christmas every time I check out. Because we all know as crafters that crafting is not cheap. So it's really nice sometimes when the websites kind of give back to their customers like that. So, and they have everything on there. They have the work wreath forms, they have the ribbon, they have centerpieces, they have signs, they have a little bit of everything. So, okay, so that is all of the ribbon that we're gonna use to put this wreath together. I don't know if y'all can hear my big old dog eating over there. Okay, so the next step is putting the ribbon into the wreath, and there are several ways of doing this. Some people like to gather their ribbon and just squish it all together at one time and put it in the wreath. I'm not really a big fan of that, so my personal preference is to lay my ribbon down. And anytime you have writing, you want to make sure that your writing is all going in the same direction. Okay, you don't want it kind of upside down and everywhere. So I always make sure that that's all facing me. And you want to take it and you want to pinch it right in the middle and gather. Like so. Okay? And then I take my next ribbon and I lay it down. And I pinch it right in the middle and gather. And then I kind of lay that at an angle across my first ribbon, okay? Some people like to lay them all together and then spread them out once they get them in there. I find that this gives it a little bit better of an angle once you get it in the wreath. And then you want to take your next ribbon and you want to do the same thing. And because it has print, you want to make sure your prints all go in the same direction. Pinch it in the middle, gather it. And then you want to lay that one so you kind of have like a big X with a strip in the center, okay? And then you want to take that and you just want to open up one of your loops or one of your ties. You just want to lay it down in there. And then you want to tie it off. Now I do not do my end tie there because I may or may not do something else towards the end. It just depends on how it looks. But from there you want to take your ribbon and you really kind of want to work that wire edge. This is why we buy the wire edge, because you can shape it. And you can really kind of turn the ribbon and kind of point the edges. And like I said, you're constantly working your wreath. Poofing it and working it and twisting it. And your fingers get a little tired, but the end product is super cute, so it's totally worth it. Okay, so again, you want to lay it down, pinch it in the middle, gather. And me personally, I like to swap out sometimes. So sometimes I'll always do the base in the same one, but I might swap out the two that go on top to give it a little bit of dimension. But I think on this wreath, I'm just gonna follow it exactly the same. So pinch it in the middle, and again you want to lay it down at an angle. And then your next ribbon, pinch it and lay it down at an angle. And so I'm using the 2.5 inch for my base on the ribbon, and then I'm using two 1.5 inch ribbons. And then you want to come down and open a tie. And lay it down in there. And then twist your tie and then work your ribbon. And make it pretty. Just like that. Okay, so I'm going to continue around the bottom ring and then we'll come back and do the top ring together. Okay, so I got the bottom round ring all done with the ribbon, and so now I'm going to start the top one. And the top one, you're just going to do the same thing. You're going to lay your ribbon down and you're going to pinch it and gather right in the middle. And then you're going to grab another ribbon. You're going to make that X on top of the base ribbon. Just like so. And there's so many different ways and styles of wreath making, and I'm going to start doing a lot of videos on the different styles that you can make. This one's just a basic, I call it a wraparound wreath. Just because the deco mesh just wraps around and it's pretty simple. It's a very traditional style, But you can make it with anything. You can do burlap and make it all, you know, rustic looking, whatever ribbon you decide on. You can make it whimsical, kind of like this, where it's just a lot of fun colors and fun ribbon, and make it all cute and stuff. And so I'm gonna finish putting all of these in the top, and then we'll come back, we're gonna put the centerpiece in and kind of see what it looks like, and then we might add some dimension to it, we might not, it just depends on how that sits in there. But you definitely, if you make wreaths, you know, I have good intentions to add all kinds of stuff in this wreath. But then sometimes when I'm making it, the ribbon is quite enough, you know, because it's different colors and it kind of pops. And sometimes it needs that extra little something to give it that extra little touch to it. So I'm gonna finish these top ones and we'll be right back. So I got all the ribbon put in. And as you can see, it's just a fun, whimsical, lots of colors, lots of designs on the ribbons popping in there. So now we're gonna go ahead and place our centerpiece. And then once we do the centerpiece, then we can see if we need to add something or take away from something or however. So it's a constantly changing process. So in order to put my hat on, as you can see, the back side of this is flat, and it's kind of it's a glittered burlap almost. And then I don't know if you can see up in there, but there's a wire that runs up the back side. So I'm just gonna cut 2 little spaces down here. I'm gonna put zip ties in, and we're gonna zip tie it to the wreath. So we'll see how that works out. Okay, so if you can see what I'm doing, I'm just kind of reaching in and grabbing some material, just cutting a little space for the zip tie. Just like that. Okay, so zip ties, you can use zip ties or you can use the pipe cleaners. And you can hot glue pipe cleaners to the back of your sign or whatever you're doing. Zip ties tend to be a little bit more secure. So I have this big bag that I got at Hobby Lobby that has all different size zip ties in it. So I'm gonna choose 2 kind of long zip ties. And then actually what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab 2 small ones and I'm gonna make a loop, and then I'm gonna put the big zip tie in the loop so it gives me a little bit more leverage to tie it off to the wreath. So I'm just gonna stick it in the little holes that I made, and then bring it up through. Just like that. Okay, so then I'm going to come down and put that through. And just snug it down a little bit. And then I'll do the same with the bottom one. Go through the little holes that I made in there. And then back up through again. And zip ties are one of those things that you have to get used to working with. The first time that I started using them, they were all over the place, and I couldn't do the one-handed zip tie. It drove me crazy, but I think I have finally sort of kind of mastered it. All right, so let me just see how much length I'm gonna need to get this into the wreath. So I kind of want to put it right where I want it, and then you kind of want to snug it down a little bit in there. And then you can look through the back of your wreath and see how far you need to go to get to the rung. Okay, so not too bad. And then before you tie it down, you really want to look at it and make sure that that's the right location for your centerpiece. So I kind of want it right about there. Okay, and then you can come up through the back and kind of wiggle through the mesh and wiggle through the ribbon. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to put my zip tie through the little hole that I created, or through the little loop of the zip tie. And then I'm going to attach the zip tie to the wire or the metal frame of the wreath, okay? You never want to attach to the mesh. You never want to attach to like the ribbon ties. You always want to do it to the metal frame to make sure it's nice and secure. So, okay. So then, before I really snug it down, I want to look and see on the front, how far do I really want to pull this in? Okay, I think right about there is good. Okay, so then you want to take another zip tie and you want to do the same thing on the bottom. Just go through the back of your mesh, dig through, and you want to find that ring that you made, or that little loop you made with your zip tie. Put your zip tie through, and then you want to secure it to the metal frame. And don't worry about smashing your poofs down a little bit when you're doing this, or smashing your ribbon down, because you're going to go back and you're going to re-poof them anyway in the end. So you can also hang these up on a like an easel and work with them that way. Okay, and again, you want to flip it over and you just want to make sure that you're bringing it down enough. Okay. All right, and I think that's going to work. So now what you want to do, if you can see that. Okay, so now you want to go through and you just want to work your ribbon. Make sure it's all pretty and looped over and facing the right direction. And especially around your centerpiece. You don't want it looking crazy around your centerpiece, because that's the focal point of the wreath. And if your ribbon is looking all kind of bent out of shape right around there, people will notice right away. So just keep working. And as far as the ties go, on the work form, the wreath form that has the ties on there already, I like to get the ties that the color kind of goes with my wreath, so I don't necessarily have to tuck them in or hide them. You can just leave them out and they look fine. So like I chose the red for this wreath, and so that is our wreath so far. Okay. So now I just kind of want to decide if I want to add a little more dimension to it or not. So give me just 1 second. I have some little floral picks here. And I got these at Hobby Lobby. And of course, like any good crafter, I hit Hobby Lobby right after Christmas, and I get all the 50 and 75% off. So this pick was $1.59, but I got it for 75% off last year. So you can really get some good steals that way, I think. Okay. So then I'm just gonna kind of take this and see if it might be too much. I think putting one little strand here and there will be fine. So I'm just going to take this and pull it down and pull it away like that. So there's another nifty machine that you can get called a pick machine, and they're fairly expensive. They are about $200 to $300, but it's a neat little machine that adds a metal pick to the end of these, so you can actually stick them in things and you can do all kinds of fun stuff with it. But for this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of stick it in between, and I'm going to take it down to the metal wire of the wreath, and I'm going to wrap it around the metal wire. And then once you decide where you really want them to go, after you've wrapped it around, I go in and I add a little dab of hot glue to hold it to the wreath form itself, and it keeps it in place. So I think a few of those here and there will be cute. I'm just going to go through and add a couple more in here. I'm not going to do too much because this wreath is already pretty busy, but it gives it a little dimension, and it adds some solid color to take away from the busyness of the different ribbons that we put in it. And that's one of the things, the busy ribbon looks really, really good on a large wreath, but on a smaller wreath it can kind of be overwhelming a little bit. So you want to watch that a little bit. So I'm just going to keep adding these in. So I'm going to add these in a little bit and then we'll be right back. Okay. So now we've added some little beading around it just to give it a little dimension and to bring some solid color to it. But looking at it, I think it just needs a little something right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 single color ribbon bows. I'm going to make a bow using 2 single colored ribbons. So to do that, I'm going to use the green gold, or green glitter and red glitter ribbon, and then no, too much. Okay. All right, so to make a ribbon, there's all kinds of fun ribbon makers out there. There's the Pro Bow Maker, which is amazing, and I cannot wait to buy one. I keep watching all these people make them with them, and I have a little ribbon making envy of them. But until then I have to do them by hand. So I will show y'all how I do it real quick. And I learned this style from one of my mentors, which is Julie over at Southern Wreaths, just watching her videos. Okay, so I'm going to do strips. I'm going to do probably about a 20, I'm going to do a 25-inch strip, because this isn't a very big bow or a very big wreath. I'm going to do 2 of each color. And this is kind of a variation or my own take on the whimsical bow that a bunch of people are making right now. Okay. So then I like this because it's kind of a net ribbon, so it's not too solid. So it's going to be real pretty in the bow. It's going to give it a little different texture and dimension, which will be nice. Okay, so another 25 inches. And we'll do another 25 inch. So be careful when you're working with a lot of glitter because it gets everywhere, including your eyes, and it can cause infection and styes and all kinds of fun stuff that you don't want on your eyes. Okay, so with the 25 inch, the neat thing about these bows is that there's no exact ruling on how you make your loops or how long your tails have to be. It's just kind of whatever you think is cute. So when I look at this wreath, I know that the ribbon needs to be right about 4 inches in height at least. So you kind of make your loop and then you pinch it together and you leave your tails hanging down. You see how my tails are uneven? You want that, okay? And I'm gonna kind of alternate between the color of bow that I'm gonna use. I'll make a little bit of a loop there. And then I'm just gonna add that, just like so, okay? And like I said, you're always manipulating your ribbon. So then, my apologies, my Great Dane and my Belgian Malinois seem to think they need to let the neighborhood know who's boss all the time. So, okay, so now I've got my just little ribbon poofs there, and I'm gonna take a zip tie, and you can do this with a zip tie or a pipe cleaner. I'm actually gonna do a pipe cleaner. Will you hand me one of those, please? Thank you. Everybody, Dominic is doing my filming for me, so it's kind of my... Okay, so when you grab your pipe cleaner, you don't want to do it right in the middle. You want to do it towards the end because you're going to use that long tail to attach it to the frame. So you want to come around, and when you come around to tie it, you want to get snug, and then you don't want to twist your pipe cleaner around. You want to twist your ribbon around because it makes it just a tighter, snug wrenching down there, okay? So now I have that, and that's nice and tight. So now I can manipulate my ribbon, and I can bring my bows and my loops around and my tails and do whatever I want with them. You can kind of twist them and work them, and this is where, like I said, it's nice to have that wire-edged part of your ribbon, sorry. Okay. And then once you get your ribbon right where you want it to be, y'all, I didn't ducktail my ribbon. What kind of wreath maker am I? Okay, so you can go back in after the fact. So you want to go in, you want to ducktail all your ribbon tails. Make it look professional. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I walk into a store and I see these store-made wreaths and the ribbon is just straight edged, nothing's done to it. It just looks like somebody threw it together, and it drives me insane. Okay. So now we have that, and I don't even know how this is gonna look in there yet, but we made a fun bow. So let's see how it does. So I think that goes kind of cute right underneath the hat. Okay, so we're gonna take our pipe cleaner and we're gonna stick it straight through, and you kind of want to find a little space between all the ribbon and all the mesh, and you want to stick it straight through to the back, and reach around the back and grab your pipe cleaner, and then you want to bring it in, and then you just kind of want to manipulate where you want this to sit. I think right about there will do. What do you think, Dominic?
Looks good.
Just like that. Okay. So then you just want to reach back to the back, and you want to secure your pipe cleaner to the metal of the wreath form. And like I said, you are always manipulating your ribbon. And you just wrap it around and get it nice and snug back there. Just keep wrapping and wrapping until that's completely in place. And then once I'm done, I go back to the back side of it and I just kind of hot glue everything to make sure it's gonna stay in place. And then I go back there and I cut off the tails of the zip ties and, you know, you clean up the back side of it. But I think that's it. I think that's our wreath right there. So that's the small wreath, and we can go ahead and measure it right quick and just kind of see how wide it turned out to be. Usually the smaller wreaths are about 19 inches. Okay. So that's right at 18 inches across. So not too bad. And then you just want to keep going back and you want to keep working your ribbon. Making sure it's all in a good spot. It's not all twisted. Okay, and take a step back and just kind of look at it. I think it's kind of cute. Sometimes like over here, I don't know if y'all can see over here real well, but there's some pieces that come sticking out really, really far on your ribbons. And a lot of times that's because the poof, where the poof kind of goes down, it has a bigger space than the rest of the wreath. So you can either just fold that back in using your wire to make that space there, or you can trim your ribbon. Don't be afraid to trim your ribbon down. I don't know how many times I've had to go back in and cut ribbon, especially on the smaller wreaths. On the bigger wreaths, when you do your ribbon strips, I mean, they look great, you just stick them in there and you're done. But on the smaller wreaths, sometimes you've really got to cut that ribbon back so that it doesn't look like the ribbon is just completely taking over. So, all right. Well, again, I'm Ellie with Southern Daisy Wreaths. You can visit my Etsy shop at southerndaisyWreath.etsy.com, or you can come join me on Facebook at fb.me/Southern Daisy Wreath. And if you have any questions on this, you can either send them through on the YouTube channel, or if you want to email me your questions, you can email me at southerndaisyWreathCo@gmail.com. I hope you guys enjoyed making the wreath and have a happy holiday.